Hello everyone, Ed Lyon here again, and today I'm continuing some behind the scenes looks here at Reiman Gardens. And today I am going to take you into another area that most of you never get to see, and that will be the production houses and the head house here at Reiman Gardens. So this is an area many of you never get to see, and this is our production house. It is divided into 3 different houses of various sizes, and this is a good time to show you the production houses because we are doing exactly what it says, producing many different plants, all for our seasonal displays this year. Some of them are for the plant sale. There's a number of plants that are actually grown out and stored for other things like conservatory displays, education, things of that nature. So production greenhouses are exactly what the term says. This is where we will grow out plants. Some of them we might be starting from seed. Some might be coming in plugs, which I will explain later. Or they may come in even larger pots. So in addition to it being a production house where we are growing out plants, it is also a holding area. Some of the plants might be coming in and the size that they'll be planted, but still being held until they can go to their respective sites via outdoors, containers, or other areas. Our production houses are about 6,000 square feet, which sounds like a lot, but it certainly is nowhere near enough to grow out all of the plant materials that you will see here on a 17-acre site. This area that I am in right now is roughly 3,000 square feet. I'm going to be taking you through 2 other houses. You can see the wall-to-one down below. They're all interconnected, but we have 2 other segmented houses as part of this production range that are about 1,500 square feet apiece. There are reasons that we would section them off, and we'll talk about that later. Running production houses and all of the associated equipment that goes with it, upkeep, maintenance, it's a large amount of work, a large amount of maintenance, and a large amount of dollars. Normally, under regular conditions, we would have a lot more help in the greenhouses with volunteers and students. You will notice today that our manager of horticulture, Sarah Rummery, is watering. So under these conditions, staff have to step in and manage and maintain these facilities, adding to our workload as well. But you can see the excellent job the horticultural crew is doing. The plants in here look exceptional, and I don't think many people coming into a facility like this would truly comprehend how much work and labor that it takes to make plants look this good, to grow them out this healthy. Many plants start very small, and they might have come in what we call plug trays. And there's different sizes of plug trays. Some of the common are 72 and 138. And what that would mean is you'd have 72 plants in one tray, or 138 in one tray. So you can imagine how small those plants are when they arrive here. And because they are so small, they can get root bound very quickly because they are growing on a daily basis. So it's very important to get them out of those plug trays and into a larger pot as soon as possible. The more they have their roots get bound up in those little plug trays, then the less robust growth they will go through once you put them in a larger pot. They can also rot or die if you don't get them out of those plug trays quick enough. Here is what plug trays look like, and many plants will come in this way. And you can see there are a variety of different sizes of plugs here. You can also see how quickly plants will grow and the need for getting them out of those plug trays quickly and into larger pots. You will also notice that they're in a special area here. This is called the misting booth. So these plants require light misting on a timed basis compared to a lot of the other plants which can be watered overhead because they're in larger pots that maintain that moisture for a longer time period. Many of the plug trays are the result of seedings that we did ourselves. So in the head house, we would have filled up these trays and then put each individual seed in them, brought out here to the misting bench to get them started. So now all of the plug trays are coming in with the plants already started. So the trays that come to us already planted will have labels on the end of them, and you can see here it says this is a 72 cell plug tray. So once again, that means there's 72 of those small sedum plants in that entire tray. It'll also give the information of what the plants are and other things that we need to know. Plants come in a variety of ways. As you can see here, these are new plants, mostly annuals. They have come in what we would call a 4.5-inch container. Some of those could very well be planted straight out of those containers, or we might do what is called up potting if we want larger size on them and they're not ready to go out yet. They could be replanted in a larger plant pot and then grown out into a larger size. There are two smaller houses within the production house complex. This one is reserved mostly for growing out plants for entomology and the butterfly wing. In many cases, there might be more restrictions on how those plants are grown and what exposure they might have to certain pesticides, herbicides, insects. So we keep them isolated in an entirely different house. Wherever we might have extra space, which also means we can be moving plants around on a rather continual basis, we will also have plants that are part of the permanent collection. And you will notice here around the perimeter, these are all basically in the succulent family and are plants that we hold and maintain. They are not like most of the annuals that we get in for seasonal displays that will be grown out in these greenhouses, planted, and then disposed. These plants will stay with us as part of a collection. I am in the final house right now, and I'm on the opposite end. It's probably going to be a little bit noisier in here because one of the fans is running. But as part of the controls of these houses, we have to provide heat. But in addition to heat, on a day like this, which is supposed to reach nearly 80 degrees, one of the things people don't realize we also have to do is cool down a greenhouse, because they can also get too hot, and that can be just as harmful to plants as not being warm enough for their growth. Right now, this house is a lot of miscellaneous. You'll notice some permanent collections along the edge, including a fair number of orchids down through that edge. But you'll also find all kinds of fun other things as well. There's some really interesting mixed cacti and succulents here. We also have a number of annuals being grown out for various reasons. It could either be to go out to the gardens for seasonal plantings, but it could also very well be plants that we are growing out now for the plant sale, which because of the coronavirus this year will be entirely online. The real workspace attached to production greenhouses is an area such as this that is called a head house. And there's a reason behind that name. Historically, the work areas such as this were always at the very end, or as we might say, the head of that greenhouse. Ours is offset. It doesn't really matter anymore whether these workspaces are attached directly to the greenhouses. The name head house has stuck, and if you were to use that term, anybody in the nursery industry would know that you're talking about a space like this where a great share of the work to get those plants out into the production house are done. We are also fortunate to have two fairly large coolers as part of the head house. Why is this important? Well, many plants will come in a dormant state, and they need to be held until they can be planted in the ground. There are different types of plants that need to be chilled. In fact, what you're looking at right now is a large number of bulbs that we were forcing and starting that were to be part of the spring display in the conservatory. The problem is, because of the coronavirus, we cannot open up the conservatory, but we are still flushing out those bulbs, and as they bloom, we are putting them out front or in areas where the public can still see them without coming in. It is unusual not to see the head house bustling with activity, whether it is hort staff, volunteers, anybody that we might have working in here, starting seed, potting up plants. We have regular weekly pot washings. A wide variety of activity in here. Is generally a very active and bustling place. Unfortunately, right now, due to the coronavirus, there is far less need, and certainly we don't have the ability to bring in our volunteers. So it is very strange for most of us to see the head house so quiet and empty on most days. Many of the perennial plants will not fare all that well in production houses. They don't want that kind of heat and humidity, especially grown out to this stage. And you'll notice it's a lot of trees and shrubs. They certainly aren't going to do particularly well in a heated greenhouse. And then you'll notice in this area, we call this a holding area. When they come in and they're not ready to go in the ground, we are holding them until we can plant them. Notice the shade cloth over this area. And you'll see that in here, these are mostly plants that would go into a shade garden. And the shade that you see that we're providing keeps them from burning up in the hot sun. Other plants that are full sun plants don't require that, and you'll see this area here are all plants that will thrive just fine with adequate water in the full sun. This style of greenhouse, so to speak, is called a hoop house. Very often just covered in some plastic. It can be used for storage. We will put plants in here to overwinter in some cases. But one of the things that we do is we go through a process that's called hardening. Many of the plants that we are starting in that heated, moist greenhouse, that's sort of ideal conditions for them. So you don't want to bring them right directly out, put them in the ground, have them try to adjust to a whole different environment with wind, intermittent rain, maybe heat, maybe cold temperatures. So you hold them in an area that's a little more protected here, and they are adjusting to some of that environmental influence before they go directly into the ground. And that is a process you may have heard discussed from greenhouses or garden centers, and it is called hardening. I mentioned not having the ability to use all of the force bulbs in what was going to be a spring display in the conservatory. I thought I would show you what the conservatory looks like right now. This is still the display that we had up before the virus affected us, and we are actually just going to make some adjustments to this display to get us through the summer. It won't be a major change out as we often do. The next major change out will now be for the holiday train show. But you can see, because we have the heat, we have the conditions in here, it is a place that we are storing some plants now that we will then use for that next sort of minor changeover. But it looks really wonderful in here. Many of the plants that probably would have come out already for the next display, we're still taking care of them. They have really flushed out here in the beds. So it's a shame that our public isn't able to see this. In fact, those vines that you see on the pseudo tree trunk there, where we never thought would get all that high to begin with because of the short duration of the show, and you see they are already reaching the top. So a whole different look for the conservatory, a look for you to see what it looks like right now as everything is being held in anticipation of the next changeover that we do as well. I particularly like the opportunity to be able to walk through the production houses as well as the butterfly wing and the conservatory, because there is no way you can not walk through these areas and just get the inspiration and the wonderful feelings that plants give you any time of the year. And you'll notice that what we're looking at now is a fair amount of tropical plants. So you can always come in here and find annuals, you can find permanent plantings, tropicals, succulents. The great diversity in here always makes me feel really good when I can walk in here and see plants that might not otherwise be in the ground because it's winter or be off season.